Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sutton Sewer Commissioners meeting, March 13th, 2019, with all members present. And we'll open up the minute for the approval of minutes of last month's meeting to start with, which we have in front of us. And I think, Larry, you wanted to make a notation on that?
Yeah, just on the next meeting will be held at 7 PM. We decided to change that, so should that be changed in these minutes that we're signing, or it doesn't matter?
No, I said I had to put them on there. Remember
Yeah,
yesterday?
but I just, because we're meeting at 2 o'clock, does it,
But I have to put what's on what we did at
Okay.
the meeting. So
Right.
this is what we discussed at the meeting.
We
so
made
that's
the
what these
change.
minutes are. Yeah,
Right.
then we made the
That's
change after the meeting, so we have to keep it the way that it is.
I agree, I understand. Have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor? Minutes approved. Next on the agenda, we have a public request from citizen Sutton, Mr. Vale, if I got it right?
Vale, yes.
Vale,
Yeah.
okay.
Mr. Chase.
And Mr. Chase, okay. If you could tell us, it was just presented to us, so give us an insight and see where we're at and move forward for it.
My name is Daniel Chase. I live at 80 Dodge Hill Road, and I'd like to tie on to town sewage, but to do that, I have to go through Mr. Vale's property. He has a manhole in the back of his house I'd like to tie on to.
Oh, I see.
And is there any objections from Mr. Vale on this?
Oh, no, there's no objections. I think the reason we're here so early, and I don't want to speak for Dan, but we'd like to know what are going to be the requirements of the town to do this. Right now, the neighbor on the other side of me, who is actually my sister, she comes in and she ties into that manhole, so our two houses tie into it. I have an easement given to her, but I also had an easement goes to the town. And then from that manhole, it goes down through Pine Ridge into the street down there.
Okay,
So I think what we'd like to do is just start the process to go, but we need to know what do we need to do. Obviously, I'm gonna need to give an easement to Dan to come across my property. But, and what happened to me last year, when we did this 30 years ago, we came up and talked to the sewer commission at the time, and it was sort of like, okay, everything, go ahead, just tie in. And then when it came time to pull the permits, there was a lot of things I didn't know. So I'd just like to know at this point, when I write the easement to Dan, if it's approved, I do the easement, or my wife and I do the easement, are we gonna need to do it to the town also? Now, the thinking at the time, I know, Cal, you're shaking your head, why? I asked the same question 30 years ago, and they said, well, we want the approval to come across the property, just in case something goes wrong with that line, and the property owner doesn't want to do anything about it. We want to have the ability to go do it. My argument at the time was like, it's gonna be my toilet, doesn't flush. So, but, that was, because I went ahead and did the easement to my sister, and then when it come time to pull the permit, the town wanted the easement to be to them also.
okay. So you currently, you granted that easement to Sutton at that time?
Correct, yeah. So Sutton has the easement that comes across my property, and then the easement goes down through into Pine Ridge.
Okay.
Goes down into property behind us. So I didn't know if just an easement,
Donald, you have some input on this?
Well, from our standpoint of it, meaning the sewer commissioners, in the past, if anybody goes across anybody's property, we would, prior to even construction, we want to see a copy recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
correct.
That's coming from our part of it. But Nick Nudemichael, who happens to be sitting here, can probably talk about the easements in regards to the town's aspect of it. Does the town require an easement also, a copy of the easement, or approval of the easement?
Is the manhole on your property?
Yes.
Does the town maintain the line from Wachusett? Goes from Wachusett up?
They do not maintain the line. We've never had a problem, Nick. You know, there's a manhole on my property, and then that goes down into the development behind me,
To Wachusett.
to Wachusett, right.
We do-
There's
we do
never been a
maintain-
problem.
We maintain the sewers out there, you know.
Right, but not, you wouldn't fix anything in that sewer easement?
Well, if there's a
The
backup, we'll
line
be
or the
there, you know
manhole?
what I mean? I mean, we'd never walk away from a backup, you know what I'm saying? We would be there to
Right.
assist.
Yeah.
Never, we never have, we never will. You know what I mean? And that's the only thing that we will. Now, the question is that what happens if the line collapses? Or there's a block, you know what I mean? Something like that there. At whose cost will it be? You know what I mean? Is it shared by all three people who has the easement? You know, that's something
Well,
that.
yeah, if the line were to collapse.
Right.
If the line were to collapse from the manhole down into the development.
And then that's where I think maybe the town wants an easement in regards indicating who is the responsibility of the,
Yeah.
you know, the three people on
Right.
it.
What they explained to me was they weren't gonna maintain that, but they did wanna have the ability to come on my land just in case something went wrong.
I can understand that because 30 years ago, there wasn't a department established, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I can understand where they're basically coming forth with that.
Right.
But now with a department being established, I don't, you know, that's not the case.
Okay,
You know
so
what I'm
just-
saying?
just make the
That's
easement
But I
to-
would say with the town easement, and I don't know what the commissioners have up there, Nick, I would think that the town would want that recorded, is that correct?
I would think that Mr. Chase would have to have an easement.
Right.
Somebody would have to grant him an easement.
Yes.
So he can get from his property to that sewer manhole.
That's correct.
Right.
And I don't think it has to go to the town, it can be just for him.
Okay.
for-
Right.
For his right to do that. But from that manhole down, I would hope that the town has that easement.
You
Because
do,
you're gonna have three people going into that manhole.
right, you
right.
do have town.
Yeah, well then, you know, let me look on the town's aspect of
Yeah.
it, but I know from our end of it, we do need recorded and registered deeds. That's just to protect, you know what I mean?
Right.
Us and so forth. And, you know, we're not to get too much dialogue about the town's aspect. I can pick it up and contact you gentlemen, and if there's anything
All right.
else that needs to
Okay.
be,
All right.
done, then
All right.
I'll go through the commissioners, let them know, and then we'll get.
Can I ask a
we'll get back to you.
question?
Yeah.
This is an easement granted to you. Is that manhole covered in this easement here?
I believe it is, yeah.
So it's a private, between you and whoever,
Yeah, our neighbors, my
Yeah.
sister, yeah. Yes, we bought that manhole.
okay, so that's,
Can I
so
ask
that
you?
manhole's on your,
It's on my property.
on your property of that right of way.
Yes.
From that manhole too, going on to the adjacent one, how many feet are we speaking about, roughly?
I don't know, what would you think?
Wachusett to the
Yeah,
manhole?
yeah,
150 maybe?
Yeah, probably
150?
right, that's good, that's,
Right.
you know, so that's what we're basically speaking about, when you're getting to the private aspect of it, it's 150 feet of pipe, that's,
Well, yeah.
so. I'm good, it's up to the commission vote on from there.
Any further members, concerns about this? In my evaluation of it, it seems like as long as the parties have agreed, and I agree with that, it needs to be recorded before the easement has to be recorded at the registry of deeds prior to pulling the permit. And then you will make that acknowledgement whether the town needs the easement as well?
Right, yeah,
The
I'll
assistance
look
on
into
that.
that, well, you know, what the town's gonna require on our end of it there, but if it's already, you know, I mean, it's quite evident, it's already with the register, I mean, in the assessor's office, I'm sure the town's already aware of what's transpiring here. So,
Well, the easement's not to Dan yet.
no.
Right,
correct,
okay.
Right.
All right, but we're okay to go ahead with this
Can I-
project?
Just bring one. I don't know, I'm just bringing something up from the past. You were on the sewer department when remember when that deal happened in Manchog, up on First Street, and all the houses up there and the line was collapsed? Maybe that was before the sewer department even happened, the line was collapsed.
Yeah,
Down in the
into
woods.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and there was a big to-do about who was gonna pay for it.
Right. But, I guess what happened,
I just don't wanna see that happening with.
well, the outfall
you
on
know.
that, well, not to get off the track, but the debate of that is the town was sending them sewer bills. So by them sending the sewer bills, they assumed that the town's responsibility.
Okay,
was, so
but is
that's-
that the same thing with this now
No,
too, right?
No.
Okay.
no. This is strictly you know.
Easement is
between
right to-
between neighbors, right?
To access the
Right.
property for the
Right.
purpose of the sewer line and also for maintenance thereof.
And, I mean, just like, you know, the gentleman was saying, I mean, anything happens to that, we need things in writing of who's gonna pay for what and all that. So that's more just a peace of mind for everybody for in the future, anything, you know what I mean? As
Right.
things change and
Yeah.
everything's recorded, so that's what that's all about.
Are any of you the plumbing inspector also, or no? Yeah, okay. I don't know if this is the time to ask a question of
It
like.
doesn't affect, plumbing is 10 feet out of the house. After that, it's drain layer. So,
Okay, but what's gonna be required of how to hook into that manhole?
that's drain layer. That's nothing to do with plumbing
There's no
inspector.
town,
That you'd have to check
bylaw
with the
on-
sewer department on that.
That
That's,
would be our decision making on that. You know, whether or not we can tie in just beyond the point of the manhole, which I feel more comfortable in, I don't really like it, you know, we have to check the inverts, I think there's only 2 inverts in there. I think we opened it.
yes.
Right, yeah, there's only 2 inverts in
Yeah.
there. So, you know, whether or not we can address that as we open that up.
We do, okay.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
you know.
I didn't know whether it's best to drill a hole in the side of the
Well, that's
manhole
just
and
it.
go
I
in
mean, I don't know
that.
what the integrity of that like, so I think it's better we should wait till we, open it up, you know what I mean? Then we,
Okay.
whether or not we tie into the line, just put a wire in there.
Okay.
You know, for your aspect of it. I'm not too keen on drilling,
Okay.
holes into, manholes that've been there for 30 years, like you
Right.
said.
Would
I'm
we
not
know,
too
would
keen
we
on
know that pretty well in advance, or?
Oh, definitely, yes. I
Oh,
get no
okay.
problem going on. You know, we already went down to
Yeah,
Mr.
we-
Chase.
Right.
We went down there, we made an assessment down there, we looked what's going on. Everything looks pretty good down there.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and he's gonna have to see whether or not he can shoot the grade,
Right.
from his, and that's the only thing that's gonna fall on Mr. Chase's aspect of it.
And who does that?
The contractor.
Contractor, okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, so, we'll again, we'll address that at that time. I wouldn't be that concerned about that. We'll work it out one way or the other with you.
Okay, very good.
That's not an issue at all.
Thank you.
So as the homeowner, you're just responsible for your plumbing permit and your drain layers permit, that as you go along, you get the easement recorded. All proper permits being pulled,
Okay.
and inspections as well.
Yeah, inspections and the connection cost.
On behalf of
Connection fee.
the board, I don't see any problem at all with this. We're all in favor, I think, we want to acknowledge that. We're all in favor of the proceed ahead, and just confirm with Donald about the town easement, whether it's applicable or not. As long as we have the rights to go on there if something happens, that's the main
Right.
thing I would.
Well, that's just
see
a
answer.
liability for us also.
Right.
You know what I mean? Meaning the department and the workers and so forth, so.
So you have our blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, move forward. Good
Any
luck with
gentlemen
it.
have any questions, just call my office, just call Amanda and, we'll
Very good. Okay.
we'll be able to
Thank
answer your questions.
Thank you very much.
Yep. I just got
Okay.
this yesterday, you called me yesterday afternoon, so I didn't have time to study it, I just pulled this here.
This time, I'd like to welcome On-Site Engineering to give a presentation to us about the sewer expansion, Sutton Center. They've done the engineering plans, and we're here to hear what you have to say, and I will move out of the way. I think that's probably gonna be the right thing to do,
Dave,
right?
you gave me this is all the proposals in one packet.
Those are the cost stuff, so
Yeah.
you can forward them around.
These-
Most people have copies. There's also a full set of
Yeah.
drawings there if you guys wanna,
Yeah.
kind of huddle around them when you're, while we're looking at stuff on the screen.
Right.
If that helps.
Mr. Chairman, just so you know, what you're being handed is just option cost. That's not the, you know what I mean? There's different options in there, so.
Okay.
I don't want you to.
Yeah, we're gonna go
let's say
through all
this is
that.
the,
Yeah, you don't have to move,
I don't?
not unless people do.
Okay, okay.
I
All right.
can directly here, so.
Very good.
Should I light up? Yeah. Oh, a lot better, beautiful.
First of all, thank you for having us here today. For the record, my name is Ray Willis, Vice President of On-Site Engineering. To my right is Dave Formato, President of On-Site Engineering. What we're here today to do is to present you with the conceptual layout right now as we have it for the Singletary Ave, Uxbridge Road, and Boston Road sewer. What we have provided to you in a draft form is the plan and profile layout of the sewers along these roads. The overall concept was to provide gravity sewer from the intersection of Boston Road, Uxbridge Road, and Singletary Ave down to approximately, I believe it's 254 Boston Road, where we would provide a pump station, which would then lift the sewage down to the existing sewer on, at the intersection of Clubhouse Way and Boston Road. So on sheet one, what we're showing, sheets C5 through C7 show the sewers along Boston Road and then Uxbridge Road respectively.
Which, you know, what you're
What's the
looking at
plan
here.
there?
It's part of Singletary?
Yeah, so right here, just, well, let's see. This is the intersection, watch your head. This is the intersection of Boston Road, Uxbridge Road, Singletary Ave. So as we go down Boston Road, we're running somewhere around 7 to 8, 9 feet below grade as we get to right around here where it gets a little deeper. It's a little unclear, and I don't know, I'm not sure how clear it is on your plans, but this line represents the existing grade. These lines, the darker lines, indicate the gravity sewer, and these indicate the sewer manhole structures. So as you see, as we start going down Boston Road, we're relatively shallow, so to speak, of around 7 feet. As we get down to station, I believe that's station 7, 700 feet down the road, we start getting a little deeper till we actually hit station 9 on Boston Road. And where that's measured from is the center line where all these roads intersect. The stationing runs down the center line of the road.
So a station 900 feet. So it's every 100 foot is a station.
So as we start going down Boston Road, you can see where, this is where the steepness of the road starts to really pick up. The center line of the road runs around 9.7 to 9.2 percent slope, which what we did on this conceptual layout is to lay out or to place the manholes such that we're running somewhere around 7 feet, 7.5 feet below grade, keeping with the slope of the road. Essentially where there was a significant change in the slope, that's where we added a manhole, as you can see from this figure right here, where the existing grade runs in this manner and then it gets really steep and then it levels off. The other thing that we based the conceptual plan on is to keep the sewer on one side of the travelway, that being the westbound side of Boston Road. So that's why when you look at this, you'll see in some instances where we added a manhole that was on a straight, that was going around a curve, which will keep the sewer line on the westbound side of the road. So as you can see, as we go down Boston Road, it gets very steep, getting down to right around where the pump station is. This is 254 Boston Road. So this is where the right-of-way fans out as it goes around the bend. So this is where we are conceptually, sheet C3. This is where we're conceptually locating the pump station, primarily because this is town-owned land. The right-of-way extends further out that way. And on the profile view, this is where the gravity collection system would end, right at that manhole, which is right here, which goes into what we're proposing as a wet well with submersible pumps. From there, the sewer force main, which is depicted by this line, would then follow Boston Road, roughly 5 feet below grade in most of these areas. As you can see, these are the existing drain lines that are on the roadway. Based on the elevations of those drains and the sizes, we should be able to go over those and not have to go under them. And that's really good where it comes down to this crossing right here. That's the 30-inch CMP pipe. So that was very, a very nice thing to figure out that we could go over it instead of under it, for constructability purposes. And as we continue to get on Boston Road, you can see where the elevation changes. This is where it starts going back up again. Comes back down, and this is on sheet C4. And the profile on this sheet was split up into two separate sections, primarily because the grade changes so drastically, there wouldn't be room to put it on the sheet. And just for your own reference purposes, the scale on the plan view is 1 inch equals 40, and that is consistent with the horizontal scale on the profiles. The vertical scale is 1 inch equals 4, just to give you an idea of what the basically depth is. As you continue to go on Boston Road towards, I can't read the street right over there, but Wainwright Road, this is where it starts, the grades start to dip down again. And it's continued from this station over here, comes back down, hits a low spot, we go over a drain again, we come back up along Boston Road, skip over to sheet 5, and this is where we start to make our approach to Clubhouse Lane, where the existing gravity sewer is. So we're coming up again, come up to another high point, come back down, and then connect to the existing sewer manhole. One of the obstacles, one of the obstacles along the way, which forced us to drop the sewer a little bit, is this drain line right here, and the water line. We are currently requesting some additional information from the land surveyors, which basically put these utilities on the plan, gave us the elevations to confirm what these elevations could be or actually are, because it was unclear based on some of the information they provided. So it could be that we are able to go over this and have to go under the water line, but this is a little unclear at this time if it would actually end up being under the water line and then underneath the drain line.
So I think one of the important takeaways too from that is that the route is really up and down. Like, you know, it doesn't appear that when you drive it. I mean, you do know that the big hill is there, but you know, kind of from the low spot over to Clubhouse Way, it doesn't. You don't get the sense of major profile changes. But you know, looking at it in this, you know, you can see it. This is the entire length of it all in one graph. You can see that huge hill right in the middle, which really messes up, you know, the ability to do gravity sewer,
like from there to there.
you know, which is unfortunate. And so the other part of this that kind of ties into the rest of the collection system is that we had a couple of working sessions with Carl, member, Don, town administrator, to talk about the overall concept of this. And the thought is that the more people that could be a party to this collection system, the better that would overall be for the project as well as the town. So in talking about this lower portion, particularly with the major hill in the middle, you know, gravity would require multiple pump stations along the way. So the concept from essentially where the pump station is at 254 down to Clubhouse Way, you know, in one of those working sessions, it was essentially decided that a low pressure sewer system, a force main running in the same trench as the pump station force main, would be added, and that would allow individual homeowners along that section of the route to connect in if they so chose by purchasing a low pressure sewer pump for their property. So that's actually part of this, but that's why when you look at that section of this sewer on you know, Boston Road, it just shows force main. There's no gravity in manholes. That's the reason for that. But you know, the intent is to try and sewer that portion of it. And then when we get into costs a little bit later, that information is reflected in those numbers. So
Okay.
just as a point of reference.
Is there a number of additional households that might be able to hook in because of that procedure?
So what we did as part of the, way back in the day, the initial part of this was we actually did an inventory of every piece of property along the route, both current and vacant, and we used the town's assessor's data for current properties to assign bedrooms and flows. But any vacant parcels, we kind of used a conservative estimate of saying if it's like a 10-acre parcel, you could possibly get maybe 10 four-bedroom houses on that, so we were assigning flows based upon that. So there is the ability, and it's accounted for, where every parcel along the route has the ability to tie in if they so choose, and they've been allocated a flow based upon those numbers. We did send that information to Don, so he has it as part of the overall package. We had him take a look at it, make sure that we didn't miss anything in particular. And that also does extend to, for example, like Wainwright, because there's 4 houses on that street. It makes sense to, include them possibly in that, portion, but things like, Silby, Armsby, and then Burbank, that really kind of got beyond the scope of this. So, down the road, if those portions of the town wanted to be sewered, it would involve probably additional engineering, because, it didn't seem like it really made sense. It was kind of really, the scope was creeping at that point from what the original.
You've been
plan
captured
was.
basically everything you're going by with
Correct.
with the line at this
Correct.
point.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, so to continue on, just to give you, to look at, this is Uxbridge Road right in front of the town hall. Pretty straightforward. Basically, would propose a manhole somewhere in this area. We could go up the street. The way that this road is pitched, have plenty of elevation, no real constraints. There is one drain line, but keeping around 7 feet, we're well underneath that. Till we get to Boston Road. Where we run, where we sort of came into some design issues is along Singletary Ave. When we first looked at this, our original thought was to try to get this by gravity from approximately
Cole Ave.
just beyond Cole Ave to the center of, to the intersection. Let me pull it up on the other thing so it's a little easier to see. So this is the profile on Uxbridge Road. This is at the intersection of Boston Road and Uxbridge Road. This is heading along Singletary Ave. This is where Cole Ave is. This is where roughly about 200 feet, 300 feet down from Cole Ave. As you can see, the grade really starts to drop off, or basically the road is sloping downward as you go away from the center. As we started looking at this and trying to bring the sewer initially from this location at Cole Ave back up to the intersection of Uxbridge and Boston Road, there were this drain line which crosses the road diagonally at that point. With that being there, it forced our invert down somewhere around 7 feet at our beginning point. Normally, when we would run into a situation like this where the road was sloping in the opposite direction of where the gravity line is going, we try to keep this up as high as possible. But because that drain was there, we had to bring it down around 7 feet
So we probably lost about 3 feet at
of
the start.
elevation.
Which,
So what this pipe is shown at, this is at 0.008%, less than 1%. Generally speaking, wouldn't want to go any less steep than that, for that could create problems with solids settling out, constructability, so on and so forth. So as we got from this point down to where we wanted to be at Boston Road, we were down around 20 feet at this point, which in turn, if we did this section by gravity, would then lower the sewer line going down Boston Road up until station around 1100 to catch up with grade. So essentially, by doing this section in gravity and being around 20 feet here, as we went down Boston Road up until station 1100, we'd be ranging from 20 to 25 feet below grade at that point, if we kept it gravity. So the other option we looked at, and just as an example, this is where the other sewer manhole would be if it was located at that 300 feet down from the intersection of Cole Ave.
Which I think is 24 Singletary.
Yeah, that would just drive the sewer down even further. One of the things we had talked about were potentially two options for this road. One would be to do a gravity line back and try to do a localized pump station. It's our understanding that the town owns land on 5 Singletary Ave.
High School.
So one option could be to run a gravity sewer to that point, put in a lift station, and then pick it up to dose into the manhole at the intersection of Uxbridge Road and Boston Road. The other option could be similar to what we were talking about from the main pump station at Boston Road, is to actually try to connect this section by low-pressure sewer and come up and just connect to that manhole. So, for the most part, I would say that Uxbridge Road and Boston Road are pretty straightforward from what we expected as far as being able to do gravity service on those sections. This section of Singletary Ave has some different things that we have to overcome, and I think, that's one of the things we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, we're looking to try and get some input from you guys.
Direction
about,
on which way to go
Which way you thought you'd
with
want
this
to go.
section.
And I think that, just to tie off a couple of thoughts that we've had and we've talked to Dawn about, part of the reason that, if you think about, we were starting at around 7 feet without this portion at the Boston Road Singletary intersection. If you're going down to 20, you're losing, 15 feet roughly, so it's not feasible. You're not gonna be able to build that. At those depths, you're gonna be in rock on Boston Road, whereas right now, if you just start at, your normal 7 and go gravity down Boston Road, the borings that we've done don't show any ledge at all, so we're pretty confident it's gonna be, pretty straightforward install. So this portion going gravity like this just really doesn't make sense. It's not something that we think we really should be doing, even though it's the least amount of, maintenance and everything from the town's perspective. It really doesn't work. So like, as Ray said, it's kind of like, do we find a spot somewhere on Singletary to put a pump station and then do a mini collection system pump up to the intersection, or do you go low pressure and just provide it a la the same concept, between like 254 and Clubhouse Way, where, if people want to do it, they need to decide that they're gonna, get pump stations on their property and connect into the sewer. So those are a couple of things that we need to talk about, and the cost stuff actually in there, those options we've kind of worked on that so you guys can understand some of those implications. The other thing, and one of the other things, in us working on this internally was that, well, if we're gonna do low pressure possibly, and then gravity, and then low pressure, maybe we should be looking at all low pressure. But a couple of the issues with that we see are, one, down the road, if the school would like to connect in, having a gravity manhole at this intersection is pretty important, because that's a large flow relative to the overall size of the system. And trying to do that low pressure is problematic, because now you have to accommodate that flow in your low pressure sewer pipes. So they're going to be artificially oversized for something that may or may not happen anytime soon. And then the other issue would be is, for example, there is a parcel of land along Boston Road that's 60 acres. So if that ends up ever developing into large residential development, you have to accommodate that as well. Whereas gravity, it really doesn't matter. The size of the pipe is going to be 8-inch, whether that's in it or not, just based upon the sizing of the overall sewer. We already looked at that. So those are two large issues that I think kind of make it where this is probably still going to end up needing to be some sort of hybrid gravity low pressure system. So we did want to kind of tie those things off, and we did take some time to look at that. But it doesn't seem like it's probably going to be feasible to just say, all right, we're just going to go low pressure everywhere.
So it sounds like you're really making clarification that the gravity at the intersection is very important as far as the future.
Yes.
The school tying in.
Right.
Which I agree with is very important.
Right. It does give you guys that option, whereas you may end up down the road, if it ended up wanting to do it and you didn't have that there, there's going to have to be possibly some accommodations or some changes made or something along those lines. So. this way it just could happen, you know, if you're set up for it, so. Is there anything else on that part of it?
No, I think that's pretty covered everything. Are there any questions?
I would just like to ask, Donald Ways kind of went over this with you already. Do you understand that concept of the problem in this section of the air?
I fully understand it.
And so, what is your recommendation at this
Wow.
point? Or thought?
It ain't recommendations, more what we have to determine, and that we really should be doing it today. We can't go anywhere with this project till we decide where we want our pump station. Do we want it at 5 Singletary Ave, or do we want it on Boston Road? You know, based upon getting a cost estimate, 'cause, you know what I mean? And I'm moving forward. 5 Singletary Ave, I mean, why we talked about that? I mean, we could run a pressure like, on site was saying, from there right to the manhole on, Clubhouse Way, but the gravity coming from Lodges, I'm just saying, over that crest will come right back to the center of Sutton. You know what I mean? That's where the gravity, there'll still be gravity on Boston Road, but it won't go down Boston Road. I mean, I'm looking at all the manholes, we're going down over there, look at the elevation. First thing popping in my velocity of the flow of the sewer, going down that steep there. You know, I looked at that, I said, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
they are steep, and we did look at that. Generally speaking, the flows that we would anticipate generating as part of this project, none of the velocities would exceed 10 feet per second.
Yeah,
They'd be
So-
right up against the top.
So they're right up against the top, like Dave said, yeah.
right. So, I mean, having that pump station at 5 Singletary Ave, I mean, what's the cutoff for the gravity on Singletary? Is it still Cole Ave with that depth you just said, or does it go back a little more? Or, you know, can we leave, obviously, we're gonna try to get as many houses as we can. I mean, whether or not we can leave out piping, you know, to the housing below that point where that steep goes down there, indicating so they can tie in with the low pressure. You know, that's something that I think we need to decide.
Right, so I think that, and this gets back to the working session we had with, you know, town administrator and you got, you know, about, the concept is that the more service you can offer, probably the better for the overall viability of the project. But Don's 100% right. The concept could be is that, you know, if you actually just flip the flow direction and go as far down Boston Road as you can, flowing by gravity back towards the center of town, and then gravity towards 5 Singletary and put a pump station there, and then gravity from Cole Ave up to the pump station. It would be deep, but it's probably doable. Now you've got like a mini collection system at the center of town, and then you just have you have a force main running all the way down Boston Ave, all the way to Clubhouse Way with nobody tying in. And then if you wanted to offer low pressure along those sections for people, you could do that. And that's not something that, you know, we've spent a lot of time looking at, because again, from our working session, the direction was to go this route. But when we ran into this, we were like, all right, we need to come talk to you guys and kind of get some sense of how you want to proceed. And that would certainly be a lower cost, but the trade-off is you're now freezing out possible connections along Boston Road, right? So, you know, that's the other side of that coin, and it's really about preference for you guys. For us, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. So.
Well, as this process was going on, my concept was in the towns is cost. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, what's the most feasible cost it would be for, you know, to present to the people in Sutton. So that's what needs to be determined. You know what I mean? You know, this evening or this afternoon.
And to be honest, I don't think we've really looked at costing just that part of it, which we can do that fairly quickly and get that something to you.
Yeah, right.
You know, probably by like Friday, so you have it. So like if we do that as like a third option where we just cut off and then run a force main all the way down Boston Road and that's it. So you guys probably do need to have that so you can make some decisions, and we don't need like decisions right now today. It's more about kind of giving you guys an update further along the discussion and coming up with some thoughts on plan.
Yes. Do we want to turn the lights on? You done with the presentation this way?
Yeah, that's.
We'll just turn the lights on for us. That way I can,
We are here.
You would still give us the figure before, if you wanted to correct that situation on Singletary, something to consider.
For low pressure?
Yeah, like you outlined that you come back into the center and then, but then maybe you cut some people out, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what, so we'll get that to you guys, probably by like Friday.
Okay.
So we didn't work on that on then, and that's something.
I think we should have that number.
Absolutely, I agree.
Are you, when you say low, you're just talking about for the people at the,
I'm just thinking.
beyond the gravity
Right,
aspect?
if you're looking at if you're looking at the cost here of such X number of dollars, how much do you add to something like this if you're gonna try and correct your situation? If you don't do it, what does that mean? You just have one straight line right down up from the center, down Boston Road, right to the,
Yeah, it would be right. It would be, if the pump station's gonna be located up at the top of the hill by the center of town, it's just a force main with no connections to it at all. I mean, in theory, you could run a low pressure sewer with it, so if people wanted to tie in over time, they could do that, but that's a major expansion of that low pressure component, and that's certainly a viable option, and we can give you an engineering cost estimate on that as well. It's just basically updating our tables.
so if you left the pump station where we originally talked,
Yeah.
down at the bottom of the hill
Yeah.
at Boston Road,
Yeah.
does that change? Does that still go there, or is it still, or you just drop that and go to 5?
Yeah, so I think that the concept would be, and Don, stop me if I'm wrong, or Ray, jump in if I'm wrong, but, so what you have right now is gravity from Town Hall down the hill to 254, a force main from there over to Clubhouse Way with low pressure from that point to Clubhouse Way. That's option one. Option two would be, instead of going down the hill by gravity, you would actually go as far as you can by gravity on Boston Road, back towards the center of town.
Okay.
And then have a pump station somewhere up on the top of the hill, whether it's at 5 Singletary, or wherever it works out best. So you have like a little mini gravity collection system on the top of the hill, and then whatever that pump station collects, it pumps it all the
Straight
way
down.
to Clubhouse Way, and then anyone else who on Boston Road isn't tying in by gravity, or if the town wanted to install a low pressure force main so they could tie in the future, you could do that. So that's kind of like the two bigger pictures, and then how you solve the Singletary flow is kind of a third thing, which is independent of those two in my mind, because you're gonna, if you look at the cost that we gave you, it's essentially like the first sheet is like the Boston Road low pressure, that option one. The second sheet is like if you had to do gravity on Singletary Ave, which you'll see how much that costs with a pump station there. And then the third sheet is if you want to do low pressure on Singletary Ave. So we've already kind of done a lot of that costing already for you. So the second and third sheets are not together, it's either or. And then those numbers would be on top of what was on the Boston Ave, the first sheet, if that makes sense.
I wanted to, Nick, I think, had a question. I wanted to just get you on board here, get your thoughts. Has it been answered, or do you,
No, I have a lot of questions.
well, speak right out.
Well, before Nick, can I just jump in, please,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman? Speaking with Dave and Ray originally, and what I spoke earlier about cost was a determining factor here, and what we're basically trying to achieve here. When the numbers came out about hitting all those gravity from the end of Singletary down to Boston Road, and when he started telling me when the manhole was gonna be 20 feet, 23 feet, 27 feet, it was right then and there when that cost was going up like that there. I says, it's foolish. It's foolish to go down Boston Road for the number of people, almost 27 feet down in gravity, going down to a pump station. The cost would be phenomenal. If we did test borings at 10 feet, Ray was right on. Dave was right on. You're gonna hit rock. You know what I mean? You start banging rock at 20 feet, there's no going back. You know what I mean? You gotta keep moving forward up there, and the cost would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's why we just said, I don't even think we should focus on that too much. So that was, that's when,
okay, but-
that basically came from me. So why we didn't continue that, it's quite obvious why we did.
So if gravity down Boston Road it has to happen exactly as we have it planned.
Right.
The questions become Singletary, do you actually add a second pump station, or do you do low pressure, right? So
Right.
if we're gonna do gravity down to that pump station at 254, you need to either put a pump up on Singletary somewhere, because you can't go deep, Don's right, or you're gonna do a low pressure to the center of town. So those are the type of things that, you know, if you look at, that's how we've kind of like thought about this from a cost perspective. That's what's in front of you right now. But obviously that other option of like shrinking the scope of the overall project is certainly there, and viable, you know, and if that's really up to you guys to decide what's more important, cost or, you know, service to possible future connections, you know, that's really a preference choice.
Well,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I would look at it personally, try and at the most efficient cost, all right? So more people can, you know, tie into the system that we're building.
Yeah.
And plus, we've got at least on that 60 acres or 65 acres, there has been a development that was supposed to go
Yeah.
there that have never been taken yet. So there's a possibility you're gonna have, you know, a few hundred units. Be it, you know, single units or
Yeah.
condominiums or
Yeah.
whatever.
And for those two, I mean, if you're gonna run, if you ran gravity as far as you can down Boston Road and had the flow actually coming back towards the center, you know, that development could always put a lift station of their own and then pump up the hill and then have it go back down, right? So there are future options that don't allow you're not making those decisions for them and you're not bearing that cost. So there are options for that type of stuff off. The only thing I would caution is like the low pressure stuff is a little different, right? Because the pipe has to be sized to accommodate that, so that's one thing you have to factor in. If they're gonna be low pressure, you're gonna wanna make sure that they can actually get that flow through the pipe.
But, Mr. Chairman, please, that 60 acres wasn't even part of this design. We didn't take any of that into consideration, other than speaking what their options would be. I mean, what we.
Other than to just double check and say like, all right, if the pipe needed to be 8
Right,
you know,
right.
8 inch versus 10, which it, you know, at basically assuming 440 gallons per acre at 60 acres, 8-inch sewer still has capacity for that, so.
Right, well, you know, which is good. I just don't wanna get the
No.
concept out there that we're designing this based upon, you know,
No,
the
no,
future
right.
growth of that there, so. I mean, we're looking at our needs and the school needs, which was a good point what the chairman made, so.
I guess what I should have said is that this design is not gonna, you know, it's not gonna hurt anybody from doing any development on that 60 acres.
No, right, if you did the gravity all the way down, it would actually, they'd be able to probably tie in by gravity, so they would actually, probably help that, so.
Okay, I want to give, Nick, you had some questions?
I just said that 60 acres, does that end up down, wasn't there an outlet on that going onto Boston Road, down at pump station is gonna be?
Yeah.
So why couldn't they just pump it down to the pump station and not even have to use the gravity up here?
Well, if we eliminated the
That's right.
pump station down there altogether, like if we were just if we did a pump
Right,
station up
right,
the top
but
of the hill.
But say we did the pump station down there and did the gravity
Yeah,
up
they
here
could-
going down to there.
absolutely, right.
They could tie into that down there and be done with it too, right?
Agreed,
Yeah.
right.
I believe there's two access to that property, one's on Singletary on the far end,
Right.
I believe, and then on Boston Road.
There is.
Yeah.
There's one on Singletary Ave, just beyond 24 Singletary Ave. And then there are, I think, two more on Boston Road as you go down the hill.
Yes.
Partway down the hill, and then all the way at the bottom of the hill where the proposed pump station is.
Right.
So they could run gravity for almost everything,
Right.
if that was developed. But there are a lot of other spaces up here, and if you have a large space with sewer and water, because that undoubtedly will come up, you'll see a lot more development around. And it's, for a builder, running a mile of sewer and water, that's not a challenge, if you got enough units. Because I've been involved in those situations. Pump stations, miles of sewer lines and water lines, way, way away from the town systems. This happened in Shrewsbury. It just happens. So you've got to expect that will happen. You go down to school, you've got some considerable pieces of land down there too.
So it's not a bad thing.
No, you have to expect, make the system big enough to handle those type of things, because otherwise you're gonna be ripping up everything and putting bigger pipes in. Or the developer may be doing that But that's, once you bring sewer up here and water, expect to see a lot more residential properties here.
I think just basically common sense, and it'd be nice to see as well. I mean, it's a plus to see town water and sewer in any community in today's market. It's a big plus factor. I would like to, if I can just get a little, have gentlemen just explain the three segments one more time
Yeah.
for the financial package.
Yeah, so the
Can-
first sheet.
Can I make comments
sure.
on that particular thing there? The Singletary Ave part, I was particularly surprised on how deep it was, going back to the center. I knew it was gonna be down there, but I didn't think it was gonna be that deep. And I totally agree with Donald, once you give above 15 feet, you're talking a huge expense. And putting a pump station on 5 Singletary Ave, you're gonna be 20 to 30 feet down below with the bottom of your pits and stuff like that. You're gonna have a huge depth there. And there's, the only other thing that I can think of to maybe raise it a bit is redirect the culvert that crosses at about 16 Singletary Ave. There's one that crosses there. And then there's one up at about 10 Singletary Ave. Connect the 16 to the 10, and then, which goes down the side of 5 Singletary Ave, goes
Yeah,
down the side of it.
The one that's really driving it is the drain pipe, which runs from the, I'll call it the left side of the road going this way, diagonally to the right side. It's basically dissects.
I think the one
The
down
road
16,
diagonal.
the further one away.
That's the one
The one
that's-
closest to Cole is the one that's really messing.
Right, I understand it, because it goes underneath the road and then underneath the house and
Yeah.
to someplace.
And unfortunately, that's also a state road, which makes
Yes.
changing drainage.
Well, they don't care much about that road, because I live on
They
that
do,
road.
they do unfortunately.
Get borings.
Yeah, they do when we're doing borings.
And you talked about the depth there. When I put my well in at 24 Singletary Ave, and when we put the well out here for the town hall, there's 60 feet of hard pan here
Yeah.
before you get to ledge. So you might run into some large rocks, but there's a lot of dirt between here and
Yeah.
ledge. But I had a number of other questions related to the design. At the Armsby Road, Burbank Road intersection there, I didn't see a vent or anything. Don't you have to have a vent when you have a high point in the lines?
Yeah, so, these are just the conceptual drawings, so that's why they're labeled as 25%. As part of the final design, we put air release valves at all high points, cleanouts at all low points.
And the line, the steep line going down Boston Road, we had, I can remember, I'm a land surveyor. I can remember a situation where you had a very steep line. We ended up putting concrete line ductile iron in there to reduce the erosion from the sediment and stuff in the sewer lines. Would that be of any help to do something like that?
Based on the velocities that that I've seen in the pipe or anticipate, the velocity should be less than 10 feet per second. Generally speaking, my own personal preference is to use PVC in any type of sewer and not to do any type of ductile iron. If we did do ductile iron, not saying it's not an issue or something we can't do, I'd want to do it ceramic epoxy lined.
And I didn't see any drops in the manholes. A drop, the invert coming in, and it would drop down and then go out. A drop like that reduces the velocity of the materials in that. I didn't see any of those in there. Is that contemplated?
Yeah, that's something we would definitely look at as we get into it more, as the design advances along, we would definitely look at that, as well as whether or not we can take out some of the manholes and basically take the lines and move them over, because a lot of back to the beginning, one of the things that we were trying to do is just make sure we keep the sewer line on one side of the road in the event that, if water ever becomes available, you could put that on the other side of the road, try to avoid any conflicts to that extent.
Over the long run, 20 years, from the town's perspective, is a forced main cheaper to install and maintain in a pump station than a gravity system?
It's definitely cheaper, as far as installation goes.
but the long run here now, so we're talking 20, 30 years between the pump stations and maintaining the lines and stuff?
The biggest thing with maintaining the lines, in my opinion, would be to get adequate cleansing velocity, which we can design through the pumps. But the other thing is making sure that the surface area is constantly moving the wastewater within the force main, so that it doesn't become septic or sit there too long and you start getting solid settling out because it's stagnant.
I think the just bigger picture too is that, you know, the profile that you're working with, you know, gravity is not possible everywhere. You're pumping in some measure, whether it's individual pump stations at houses that are connecting into low pressure sewer, or, you know, sections of gravity that are collecting into a pump station and then moving that water. Just you're not getting, it's just not possible to go gravity everywhere. Even if you just collected the town hall, even if you just did, the plan was to just do right here and then head to Clubhouse Way, you still have that massive hill in between that you're not gravitying that. So there's gonna have to be some pumping along the way.
Yeah, I fully understand that.
Yeah.
But I know Don is a big proponent of forced sewers. He likes forced sewers. I look at it also, beside the town point of view, is that the individual homeowner, he has to buy a pump, he has to maintain the pump,
Yep.
he has to pay for the electricity, and that is an added expense for the particular homeowners. And we're talking, let's say the Singletary Ave part, and from the bottom of the hill here, all the way to Clubhouse Way, everybody is gonna be on with these sewer pump, grinder pumps, paying for those things. And I think that for the individuals, that's a cost. When this was originally talked about, to running sewers up to take care of the town hall situation, I looked at it and wondered if, instead of starting at the manhole at Clubhouse Way, if you started at the manhole at Marble Road, which is 500-600 feet to the east, and probably 10, maybe 15 feet lower, if you started down at Marble Road, could you run gravity up to the intersection of Armsby Road and Burbank Road and Boston Road? Could you, would the cost of that particular added section be better than running all of that as a force main?
Yeah, there is, I mean, we did look at that. There is a small section of that part of Boston Road that you probably could do gravity. It also appears like there's not a lot of lots there either, so it's, you're not servicing a large number of houses, it doesn't appear. And then, actually, maybe, can you pull that profile back up?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It does, once you go, the hill that you go down coming towards the center from Clubhouse Way, it's kind of flat. It's actually a pretty steep hill, so that section of gravity is not gonna be, oh, actually,
I think she turned it off.
oh, yeah, I think so. Can we put the projector back on? I'm sorry.
Oh.
So there is a
That's
possibility
what
to
I'm
put
gonna
some gravity there. It's not a huge amount.
And the last question that I have is more directed to you. How are you gonna pay for this? Is it gonna be like the Wilkinsonville sewer and the Manchog sewer, where the town footed the bill for the whole thing? Then the individuals pay to do the hookup fees and stuff like that? Or is there gonna be a betterment fee associated to everybody?
Very little.
Want me to answer that?
You should
Michelle?
know the betterment fee.
I think,
Do that.
We don't do betterment fees
So
in
we
the
don't
town.
have any.
We've never have done that.
let's not
I know
confuse
that,
anybody
so why you
on
asking
this.
about it?
So,
In response to Nick's question on that, that's
The whole
gonna
town
be,
pays for this.
that's gonna be determined with the town administrator and the board of selectmen in conjunction with the sewer commissioners. That has yet to be, until we find out what the cost is gonna be, you know what I mean? That's gonna be decided by the town on what's the best way to fund this. So that's really not our decision, that's really the town's decision on we can't assess things to tax bills and things like that if they wanna go that avenue. They wanna go avenue with, if you would do assessments with the 20-something people on it, it'd be phenomenal to them. And you have to agree with that. Yeah, and no, I'm not in favor of that. That is kind of foolish to assess that just to a handful of people. So again, that's something that's gonna be sit down with,
Well,
the commissioners and the
You
selectmen.
answered your own question. Everyone we did,
Yeah.
the town pays for the construction.
Yes, that's.
That is correct, but it
Yeah, I
doesn't
think it's-
necessarily have to happen this time. And I
Well,
think that
it
that's
does.
very
I think
important.
it does.
It is very
You'll
important,
find-
you're right, I agree with you. But I just, it'd be too devastating for the
No,
20-something
it's-
people if you were to start going with betterments and so forth.
I believe
That's my
on-
opinion.
I think somewhere
Not my
along there is
decision, so.
an issue with that.
On the onset, when this discussion came up a couple of years ago in starting this, I think that issue was brought up right then there from the get-go, and it was kind of placed, in my mind anyways, that the concept is that it is servicing the town of Sutton in many ways. Some just individual homes, but it's the town hall, the town of Sutton, and allows Sutton to expand with the goal of a school system. Which, Sutton supported the Manchog system to be completed and done by being approved by the town taxpayers. And Wilkinsville was set up that way initially. And I think any expansion that is of this magnitude, I would think would have to be town-supported and town-paid through the borrowing and taxpayers' base. As Donald mentioned, the onset of fee to 20 homes or just 20 buildings, just the town hall alone would be assessed astronomical numbers. So as a member of a board, at this point, my opinion would be that this would only move forward if there was, once a plan is approved and selectmen just make that decision, it goes to the town for a vote. Any further discussion on that particular aspect? I mean, have the gentleman, that helped, Nick, as far as how we thinking, or?
I'm just throwing that question out, because
Okay.
believe
think-
me, that question will come up.
Yes, and I think your questions are very good, because it does help the people listening and want to watch this presentation, want to know, well, what's going to happen to my taxes, what's going to happen, am I going to have some growth here, am I going to get the sewer? I personal experience myself, it meant a lot to me in Manchog, and not just with my home, with a lot of aspects, and made Manchog grow by having town sewer. So it wouldn't be what's there today without town sewer. That was the key. I'm referring to mainly Manchog Mills as far as the volume and so forth, because that was operating off a failed system, septic. But not to elaborate, I would like to probably get back to the gentleman if they could just, I would just like a little bit of a repeat on the three presentations of this,
The cost, yeah.
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
yeah, so sheet number one, represents what's shown on Uxbridge Road and Boston Road. And sheet number 2 and 3 deals with Singletary Ave. Primarily, the reason why we broke it up this way is we felt that Uxbridge Road, Boston Road conceptually matched what we were all thinking, so that's why that's broken out separately. With Singletary Ave, we did one cost estimate as if we were gonna do it gravity with a pump station at 5 Singletary Ave, and that's Singletary Ave gravity. The second estimate would be as if we did that section by a low-pressure sewer or some system similar to that.
Okay, so that answers my question right
Yeah.
on the onset, that you were going with a full second pump station
Yes.
at that
Yeah.
point, and that's why that's quite different.
Yeah.
Okay, and I agree with everybody here, that's, that 25-foot depth
Forget it.
is unrealistic at this point. So we'd be, at this preliminary point, we're looking at Uxbridge Road and Boston Road, along with page 3.
Page 2.
Is that how you looked at this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Donald?
that's,
One,
These two amounts together?
Right, so if you
Page
did page
one and
one,
two
page one and or page 2 and 3 would get you
2 and 3.
sewer everywhere. So you could do page 1 and page 3, or page 1 and page 2.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask
Yes.
what those numbers are for those people that don't have them?
No, sorry. Pass that over.
I think you should read the number, the total numbers for the public, for those three options.
Should that be done now at this point,
I think-
or
well,
should
it's
it
a
be
present-
decided
uh,
first?
25%.
As long as we understand that this is not
Yeah, just-
Well, that's the point I'm
Make
trying to
it,
make.
yeah, make it
People
so
hear
it's
a
not.
figure, they're gonna think this is the figure.
These are options, I believe.
Well,
just
let's make that really clear that it's
Yeah,
options.
absolutely. Right, these are just, preliminary costs based upon like Mass Highway unit prices, as we've kind of laid out the various options. And certainly this can and will change depending on the input we get back from, the town on, and how you would like this ultimately to look. So, this certainly by no means is final numbers.
Okay, for the general purposes of everybody understanding this, it's just a preliminary proposal of estimated amounts at roughly 75% done, let's say, of the mathematics. Is that what you're, I know you're saying using minus 25%.
No, that's 25% draft, that's
Oh, just in terms of like the overall.
preliminary.
Level,
Okay.
like in terms of not, this isn't a cost estimate based on a final bid package design, is essentially. It's more about relating this cost to the plans that were, the concept of the plan, so.
So, well, I'm gonna, just so that I won't mess this up, then I'm gonna ask you if you would repeat what you said as far as each page, the dollar
Sure.
amount,
Yep.
and what it presents to the town, and give good clarification as far as if we're including Singletary Ave
Yeah.
in those amounts, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the Uxbridge Road, Boston Road option would be, our opinion of construction costs would be roughly 2.94 million for that segment of the road.
Okay.
For Singletary Ave as a gravity option, our opinion of cost for that would be approximately $2.1 million.
And that includes a dedicated pump station on Singletary Ave to collect and feed that into the system.
And to do Singletary Ave as a low-pressure sewer or equivalent, our opinion of cost is roughly approximately $700,000.
And you would, so if we include Singletary Ave and Uxbridge Road, Boston Road, those page 1 and page 3 would be the,
Yes.
Add-ons.
an amount that is just projected at this moment, but not a final bid or a proposal at
Yes,
this point.
Correct.
Just,
Yep.
just a presentation to us.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. And
So,
I think you
yeah,
showed that.
one point you got here on these, on 1 and 3, you've got the cost for a pump station on both of them, is that correct?
Yes, that,
Yeah, so you're looking at 350,000 off on either or, is that correct?
right, so again, this.
Yeah,
this-
low on this here.
Right, so if you end up just shrinking the project down
Right.
to really collect the town center and not put a pump station down at 254, the costs are gonna be very different. So that's what I said at the onset, that we'll revisit this and provide you guys with that cost, by Friday. We'll send it over to Don, in an email, and then he can distribute it.
Okay.
So.
I believe you're already showing that it's not extended over there in your math at this point.
I'm sorry?
On page 3, Singletary Ave low pressure, the extended total of the pump station has not been carried over to your math to begin with.
Yeah, because on that scenario, those pump stations
So include-
would be individual homeowner responsible.
Okay, I
Right.
follow that.
So,
Well, we definitely have a lot to evaluate on this. Donald, do you have any inkling at this point? Is this something that we're able to reach a goal with for the upcoming town meeting to be presented after the selectmen have an opportunity? The timing is very
Well, I mean, if we can direct on-site of where we want our pump station, then we can start getting they can start moving forward. That'd be correct?
Yeah.
You know, guys,
So
that's what they need
we're-
to know.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Once we can make that determination where we're going, then we can start getting some, concrete numbers together.
I'm gonna look to my colleague here, Larry, he understands these elevations and mathematics very well. And I'm looking for some of your input.
More credit to them.
Being,
I really don't have a problem with a low-pressure system, because to me, if your septic system has failed and you're on a tight lot, $4,800 is a small price to pay for
Pump core, right.
a septic system, basically. I mean, you gotta pay a little bit to get it out to the street and maybe do some piping in your house, but.
Yeah, I would carry probably, that's furnished, first installed.
Right, but I'm just saying, as opposed to 30 or 40 or $50,000 raised mountain of dirt in your backyard with a pump anyway, at least
Oh,
this
yeah.
is getting it out of there and
Yeah.
it's going somewhere.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with low-pressure system, even going down Boston Road. If people wanna tie in, if they have a failed system and there's a pipe in the road, it's really not a huge cost.
Yeah, point well taken. The studies have shown that the low pressure stuff, even with the homeowner owning and maintaining the pump cores,
Yeah.
are essentially in line with septic system replacement
Right,
costs,
and
so.
not only that, I mean, even a septic system, you still have to pump it.
Sure, right, more
And-
often than
and-
not with
right.
groundwater the way it is these days.
Yeah,
you're adding a pump
and,
to it,
for an
so.
electric bill on a grinder pump, I don't think it's outrageous as far as having your tank pumped every 3 to 5 years, so.
Right. That's an astute observation.
I put in a new system a few years ago.
so do you
So
have
you know.
do you have a recommendation where the pump station, which procedure we should go with? 'Cause that's what we're looking for, a goal here to make that determine whether,
But Chairman, if I may, I
Yes.
think that what would be helpful for you guys would be is if we can develop the cost as Don requested, and then, like, kind of a layout of saying, okay, we anticipate you'll be able to get gravity on Boston Road to this point, in terms of like a location on the road, so that maybe you guys can have that information to really like understand, all right, if we're gonna put a collection, pump station up in the center of town and just forget about putting a pump station down at 254, you probably need a little bit more information on that. So I don't think that we need to get something today determined from
okay?
the group, and I think there's some information that would help you along in that process, and we'll expedite getting it to you
It would
guys
get more
this
defined.
week, so you guys can really have a sense of that. You can talk to Don, and if we need to, come back and sit down to, if there's questions that you want, one of us can certainly make ourselves available.
I mean,
Yeah.
looking on, my opinion is that I'm not in favor of having two pump stations. I don't think we need one at 5, I don't think we need one at Boston Road. I think we need to determine,
Where?
one or the other.
One or the other.
One or the other, so I'm not in favor of having two pump stations. Which is a.
And I'm not in favor of having 20-foot deep manholes that you guys are gonna have to work in. Would you wanna go down in a manhole 20 feet deep? No,
I said, but once you start that 20 feet, you know what you're not going back. You know what I
So
mean?
in making that statement, for my clarification and the public's clarification, that leans you in favor of the pump station being where?
I'd like to see the numbers.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, I'll be honest, I'd like to see the
Then-
numbers.
all right,
You know
so
what I
that-
mean? And I
Right,
think
'cause
it's
if
fair.
yeah, I mean, if
Good
it's a
consensus.
10% discount,
Right.
that frames the discussion. If it's half as much, that changes things dramatically,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Because then you're looking at saying we're expanding our sewer system by whatever, 15%, but it's costing us twice as much. Is that good value, right? So that's something I think that you guys need to see,
Right.
and really understand better. So we'll make a point to get that to you
Yeah.
guys.
And
Very
if
happy
need be,
with
Mr.
that.
Chairman, we can schedule a meeting at the end of the month.
Yes, and I think that would be, so you can get back with Donald as soon as it's available, and we'll just book, schedule a meeting in as soon as possible for you,
Okay.
all right?
Yep.
We want to try to, our goal right along has been to, come up with our evaluation and decision so that the selectmen can review it and
Yep.
see what we can present, and it's been a few years of talk and planning that we
Well,
want to try
I
to
believe
bring.
that the town administrator wants on site to present it to the Board of Selectmen next month, in April.
Yeah, April
Yeah,
4th,
yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
Oh,
Is
you,
that what
yeah,
it is?
I was wondering if you had
I
a
think you
scheduled date.
mentioned- I think you said somewhere around the beginning of
Right.
April, right?
So, and along with the sewer commission, so they wanna have us vote there.
Okay,
Did I, how many actual houses is this gonna take in the way this is designed right now?
This would do everybody along Boston Road.
But how many, like,
No.
do you have a
I-
figure?
Do you have that thing on the, I printed it out.
50.
We have a whole spreadsheet going of everybody.
It's either 1 and 3, see, that's Boston, that's the real Boston Road. So that stays there. Right? And these are 2%. Cemetery ground, cemetery road.
So it's either 1 and 2 or 1 and 3? I gotcha. I was trying to figure it out.
So, essentially, hard to read.
Yeah, I can.
And this is something that we, this is something that we did share with Dawn. So to give you a sense, we started at 24 Singletary and just went all the way up through the center. Cole Ave, these houses on Uxbridge Road, and then everything around the center itself. We've included capacity for Dudley, just in the off chance that that was something. And then just down Boston Road, starting at the center of town, all the way down. Right,
285, somewhere around there.
right. So then keep going. This is probably just the gravity.
Yeah, that's gravity,
Right,
and
so
this
then,
is-
this section would be where the low pressure starts connecting into, so that these houses would be tied into the low pressure system along Boston Road.
So it's not just 20 houses.
No,
No,
right,
no,
it's,
no.
it's a substantial number there.
right.
That might be something that, when we meet with the selectmen, just to have a number.
Oh, yeah,
That's-
that's quite easy.
Yeah.
You
Quite a
know?
while off counting.
Yeah.
But you really have to distinguish between gravity and low pressure. I mean,
Right,
that's what,
but-
that list you up there is all low pressure grinder pumps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's, you know,
Yes.
when that cost basically came up, you know, but we're looking at people more on gravity. You know what I mean? There's only a handful of people on gravity that's gonna be on it. And that's when that question was asked, that's what we, you
Yeah.
know, oh, there's not that many on.
But when it comes to the presentation to the voters in town and the supporters of this, is the actual knowing how many users there will be on the new system.
Oh, yeah, no.
And that, you know, knowing that's gonna contribute to the operation
Right.
as well as the growth of the town of Sutton. Well, gentlemen, I think I learned a lot and very informative, and look forward to you getting back to Donald as soon as possible, and we'll, with those numbers,
Yeah.
and we can kinda, you just give us a yell and we just schedule another meeting.
Like, what I'd like to say though, Mr. Chairman, is that I have to tip my hat to onside. You gentlemen, I mean, went over and beyond from what we got for our dollar. I mean, they came out, not only on these 3 options they gave the designs also for these options out in the street. And, you know, and to go back and forth and to how onsite, you know, presented themselves and what they gave us for, you know, for our design, I wanna thank you. I mean, I'm very impressed. I'm basically in awe. You guys, top shelf and, you know, very professional. I wanna thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Good.
And,
Well,
you know, it's-
well, you definitely had the town of Sutton's interest at best hand, is what I'm just basically like
Yeah,
to
and
make.
that's, you know, and I think when we came to you guys talking, you know, in the selection process, I think that hopefully the impression you got was that for us, it does us no good to just, you know, engineer something. It's gotta be what's right, and if it takes iterative process, meetings, whatever, it's time well spent, because at the end of the day, the town's gonna get what they want, and it's gonna work for you guys, and then, you know, we get, you know, testimonials like that, and that's what is really important to us, so.
Well, we were impressed, and that's why we voted to have you do the
Oh, thank
design.
you.
And so,
And, you know, I mean, working with Don's been fantastic, Amanda, you know, these guys have been, you know, great, responsive, so it's working out really well so far.
Well, you,
that's why we keep asking them all the questions.
Yeah, right?
well, I can say that you made us look good.
Well,
No, and thank you, no.
Okay, again, thank you very much.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. You wanna?
Yeah, question? No, we're good.
No, nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, let's see what we have here. I shouldn't have said I see what we have here.
Lights went on.
Like him on there.
Okay.
These are for Dawn.
Next on the agenda, we'd like to handle this a warrant. Donald, present that to us.
I believe there's one article already put in under the, capital improvement plan, that was a new truck, and that was presented to, by the town administrator to, have it taken out of retained earnings, but we should discuss it here as the board. The second article I'd like to have sponsored is that in, regards to our I&I study and the feedback we got from, the DEP, that's what you got in front of you. There's a list of things that they kind of like us to address. Nothing major, but the most important, well, one thing here is that the deficiencies, I believe Hoss brought that up in the past, last, a few meetings ago about Manchog, the manholes that we received in there with the I&I in there. That, we're gonna be addressing that in May, June of this year. You know, I budgeted for that, so that concern they had here. The other one I think is most important right now is the cammering. They like cammering done, and our priority on the cammering is the transite pipe going to from 122. I need the railroad tracks to the Blackstone Street Station. I mean, that's eventually with all this new planning coming on, that's never been cambered. You know what I mean? I think it's over 2,000 feet. I think, you know, from that, and I asked Beta to provide me with a cost estimate, and that cost estimate was $10,000, you know, to camera that. That's information we need, you know what I mean? We need to know what, you know, if there's I&I getting into there, is there, the integrity of that, line? And that was put in there from the mid-70s. So, I would like to, you know, sponsor an article, to have that section cambered, at a cost of $10,000. So,
Is this the section that has the,
transite pipe,
Transite
all
pipe.
transite pipe, correct,
Okay.
right. It's never been inspected, never been cambered, you know, and, we need to know, you know what I mean? You know,
I
where
remember
we're
that
going
being
with
on our discussion 10 years ago.
this. Yeah, you're right, yeah. Well, now with the proposal, with the extension of the sewer, now with the, Galaxy Pass coming on board, everything impacting the system, you know, it ends up there, so, that's something that, you know, we need to look into, stay on, see what's going on.
So, this is an article from the enterprise fund, or is it?
That's correct, which I have a copy of what we have here. I wanna give that to the board. I asked Mr. Harrison to forward over our balances on the cost.
What we can use.
Oh, right there. Well, this is what's available in the enterprise account. We have to understand in 2013, the on-site inspection, you have to deduct that from the balance, and what you see is what we have in our enterprise account. This is forward over from the town accountant to, I requested that to for the commissioners. Which means last year was a good year we had for sewer connections.
So this math has already got the on-sites
That's correct, well,
deducted from it?
well, it's, right.
The 17th,
That top figure you see
Right, it's the
Right.
current. I
is the
understand.
current, and then what's already been taken out for the article.
Okay.
prior year,
Well, I believe this is actually the request of the Department of Environmental Protection for this work to be done and to, as part of our I&I study that we did.
That's correct.
This is a follow-up report
This is a
from,
follow-up report, right.
Follow-up
right.
report,
We made
okay.
our obligations, now this is their response of our,
and a reply from what we agreed to do.
that's correct.
Okay.
The Cameron, they like the Cameron every 9 years, so they're not like it's, you know, we have to jump on the camera, the whole sections of the thing. They like it, like kind of a capital plan, so to speak, on what we're gonna do, so I'm working with Beta on that. But, again, the priority to me is definitely the Blackstone Street, that line.
And how long is that line?
I would say about 2,000 feet.
2,000 feet?
that's,
And it goes out through that valley, goes almost, I'd say maybe 2,200.
it's cross-country, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And Beta Engineering has,
They're the ones who did our I-9 for us, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're the ones who's dealing with the state.
any discussion on that?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If they camera that line and find out there's something wrong with it, what's,
It's the ultimatum.
Then we go to Plan B.
that's,
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make is if there's something wrong with that line, what's it gonna cost to have it repaired? If we don't know, and we start
Aye.
adding sewers up here with a huge cost down there of trying to replace something that has to be fixed before we can add anything else to
Yeah,
it.
but, I mean, like, you figure since Pleasant Valley came on, we've had this discussion when that 12 went to that 10. I know eventually, you know, I can handle it now, but as things are growing.
Well,
I mean, we've got, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know, the only option is to look into it and see what's going on there. You know?
It's obvious our growth has required us to
And,
do more and more maintenance and also to stay up with certain requirements.
well, I
This
just
is
soon
not
find
an
what's going on
optional.
And have
This-
it blow out on us, and then,
Is this a request from
that's my
DEP?
recommendation, right.
your recommendation?
If we're gonna start, I wanna start there, you know? Start there and work our way back.
Where does that line actually start and end?
It comes from this, Manchog Fire Station. That's where Depot Street, pumps into. That station there. It goes gravity all the way down to, Blackstone Street. So it runs parallel to, the fire station, right.
Along the river?
Right. Right, well, eventually it does. It starts right there when you get on Buttonwood and that's where the manhole is.
Oh, okay.
All right? Then from there, it hangs on that little bridge there. You can get out and see it wrapped up. Then from there, it goes right through the Valancourt property, and it does a zigzag here and there.
Close to Millbury.
We never know, there's one manhole we never found, you know, so we will find it when it can, but, so. Then it goes underneath the railroad tracks, then it runs parallel to the river into the station. I mean, I'm not really looking for, you know, like you said,
No, but it's,
It's gonna be expensive.
yeah, well, something happens, it should be expensive, right?
Can you line the pipe over?
You can leave it there, you can leave it there and replace it with a.
You couldn't
yeah.
put a liner in it?
No, not transite pipe. You'll blow that right up. Again, you have to take things serious. That's been there from the 70s, you know?
yeah, the thing is too, if you replace next to it, you can keep the flow going while you're putting a new pipe in.
That's correct, right, yeah. Right.
It-
But I mean, that details a lot. There's not, I mean, that's a lot of wooded areas, then it goes underneath the railroad tracks, and I think the biggest part is up by Blackstone Street, once you get out on the other side of that, you know? And then you run that whole pipe going into the pump station. I mean, we keep on saying, well, geez, I'd like to see what's going on with aggregate. Well, we can't bank on that, you know what I mean? If aggregate was to develop that property, we could have rerouted everything right across the street to the aggregate property, put a new pump station there and pump it to Millbury in that manner. However, we can't be contingent upon that, you know? That was just my thought.
Does anyone would like to make a motion?
We should find out. We should look at it.
I know that, you know,
If it
over the
happens,
years,
it
it's
happens,
always
yeah.
been a discussion piece
Yeah.
of a potential problem, and,
When will this be checked and what time frame?
Well, we can't touch the money, I can't touch till July,
Till
so,
July.
you know what I mean? It's, so it'll be sometime in July, August, September, on that every year, when we can get, looked into.
So we could be approving a sewer extension up here without knowing what's going on down there.
I wanna know where the end result would happen, you know what I mean? So that's, you know, that's a smart thing to do, start from the fire end and work our way
Nice
back.
if you could do it sooner.
Carl, if you, do you want to make a recommendation? We have to take a vote on this for the article, so.
Well, I would my motion would be that we at least look into it and see what problems
The
have or
request-
have
The
not.
request is the cammering of it.
Yeah, well, whatever they call it.
So the money would have to be approved at the town meeting now.
Yeah,
They
that-
can't-
yeah.
That's the problem. We can't, it's the May town meeting.
And it's from
so-
the enterprise fund,
Yeah, it's for the
not
enterprise.
taxpayers.
Right, not from our operation fund,
that's
not our retained earnings, so to speak, right.
It's part of, it's not part of I&I, is it?
Yes, it is by the I-9.
All right,
yeah.
so I recommend we do the recommendation to inspect that particular 2,000 feet of pipe with an I&I study of $10,000.
I'll second that motion. We, as a sponsor, as an article for the camera study. All in favor? Oh, you want to
Okay.
discuss, further discussion?
Is there any way we could do this before that, or does it have to?
You got $10,000?
Yeah.
Well, we're not gonna be able to,
Well, I'll tell you why, because, you know, I didn't know that was really coming down from them till, I put the money aside to do that, work on in Manchog, you know what I mean, so that when I put my budget in, I want to repair the, INIs that were coming in the manholes down in Manchog, so I kinda put money aside for that in my budget, not anticipating that the camera work, you know what I mean? And so I really don't have it in my budget, you know, I mean, could I take for Pete to get the Paul, I have to dissect it. If everything runs fine from now till July 1st, yeah, we're good, you know what I mean? So, you know, but we got pumps and things like that we're looking to replace.
I'm not saying to take it out of something you already have. It just seems $10,000 is a small amount of money when we're looking at, you know, $3 million.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there, but I, you know, I mean, if it was blown out as emergency, yeah, there's probably, we can probably shoot out, you know what I mean, you know, come across.
Well, then there wouldn't be a choice.
You're right.
Yeah.
How long's it been in the ground?
Mid-70s? That's when all went down there. Nick remembers that, like it was yesterday.
Yeah. No, I don't remember that well. Yeah, mid-70s.
Yeah. It's about
So,
right.
it's something that I mean, it has to get done, you know what I mean? And,
and your goal here is to get it so we can get it to the May's town meeting and, be hopefully done in July.
definitely, right, I
Just
can't do it the appropriation comes in, you know
Right.
what I mean? Well, I mean, if the town accounting administrator if it gets approved in May and they says, yeah, go ahead and just, you know, move forward, I don't know how that works, I don't wanna speak for them, you know what I mean? I know we can go ahead and move forward on,
If they approve it at
Something
town
that-
meeting, yeah.
you know,
Once you get the appropriation done.
right, so that's all. you know.
Clear it up, it's gonna come out of,
Well, without any ado, we'd have to take a vote on this, and the follow-up discussion, there has been a motion to sponsor an article of $10,000 for cammering the transit pipe, approximately 2,000 feet, as recommended by the Department of Environmental Protection. from our previous I&I study, which Donald's basically superintendent of the sewer department. And I've known that this has been a discussion for a long, long time about this concern of this 2,000-foot pipe. So the future's gonna be what the future is, I guess, but at this point, I don't know if we should delay a potential problem. It could be a major problem, something we could resolve. So I'm in favor, as I mentioned before, seconding Carl's motion. And if, without any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes to sponsor the article for Cameron. Be taken out of the enterprise fund. It is not assessed to the taxpayers or the tax users. It's funds that we already have in our enterprise fund.
It's money that was accrued through connection fees and inspection fees. That's where this money's coming from,
Right.
just so the people know what's going on.
Okay. All right. Is there more than one article?
Well, that was sponsoring, the other one came from, I told you with the truck with the, capital improvement plan.
Capital improvement plan.
That's already,
Yeah, but that's still coming out of the enterprise account. I still think you should vote on it. If you want it, fine. If you don't, that's fine. We don't have to get too much dialogue on
is
it.
that where they name it? Oh, it's a separate article, right?
No, it's all into the capital improvement, but what it is, they tell you where the funding's coming from. And, the funding for the new truck for the sewer department's coming out of the enterprise account, and I really think that the commissioners should have some say in it. I don't think the town should have a say. That is duties and responsibilities to oversee the expenditures from this, so that's what I'm getting at. So,
How much is the truck?
I think 24, 25, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know the exact amount, but
Yeah, it is what it is.
And how long is the vehicle we're replacing there? How old is that?
2009, with 235,000 miles.
Yeah. You can etch out another 200,000 miles on
Hey,
that car.
I don't more than me,
No, I don't know.
not a big deal.
So our conversation, I guess, is that the capital funding has approved purchase of a truck, but it will be taken out of the enterprise fund, again, which is funds that is accrued by user fees. I'm sorry, not user fees, but connection fees, and retained earnings. Is there any option on this at all, or is this something the town, how do we know this price? Is this something that's,
That's the bear. I got this through the MHQ, I believe. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
municipal-
this one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
the municipal thing, that's what I get.
Buy for one guy or something.
This is the bid, right, we're just getting,
the basics.
The basics,
Is-
that's
yeah.
any discussion? It's a decision, we're making a lot of financial decisions, which is something we have, that's our job.
right.
And we do have our growth happening. I'll make a motion that capital improvement be accepted as an article. And it will be taken from the enterprise fund according to the accountant.
That's the I get from the town, right? From the town administrator.
And it's approximately 24,000, you said?
Right, could be 24 and some change, I don't know, like, but I think it's about 24.
I can get the exact numbers
Okay.
downstairs.
Up to,
Any second?
second.
All in favor?
Yeah, mixed feelings.
So,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
you could,
You can object. It's
No,
not a problem.
I don't, I'm just, can I abstain right now?
Yes,
All right,
by
that's
all
what I'm
means.
gonna do.
Yeah. The vote would be 2 to 1, there'd be abstained, which makes it still go through. So it's passed at this point. And I appreciate that concern, because we all have our concerns with what's going on with the,
I just see this whole thing getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's making me nervous, that's all, so I'm just,
Well, let's hope that this,
I'm not a
future
numbers
growth
guy,
of,
I like to, I like to see everything flow, but I'm just,
Well, the projected, well, it was hard to project, but our budget, as Al mentioned, he didn't plan on this, on the camera work. The truck was kind of planned, but unfortunately, it's, their recommendation is coming from us rather than from the town. So we are supporting our own way at times, and that's what all the connection fees are. And we're just hoping Sutton Center continues to grow.
Yeah.
And it looks promising for the current year anyways.
Well, that's what the enterprise fund is for, is to put right back in the department, into the system, you know, right, and that's exactly what we've been doing.
And our concerns are that, you know, with growth and with, on age, there's expected costs.
Yeah.
So,
just,
Amanda, we get that?
if that pipe has to be replaced, what does that come out of?
We have to make some kind of appropriation, it's a good question, we don't even, you know.
So that's not enterprise fund money, then that has to come out of, that's gonna
Well-
have to go in front of the town again and be voted on to be,
Well, I mean, we can't take anything out of the enterprise account without an article, that's what we're just discussing right now.
Right.
And if that goes up to that point there, depending what the cost is gonna be, that will probably just wipe out everything we have in here.
well, that's
No, that's just
kind
it,
of the
right.
point I'm trying to make.
That's correct, and that's, I mean, we can't be, you know, I definitely would recommend that. This is our safety net. I mean, this goes, there's no
Right.
safety net for nothing.
And therefore becomes another concern of, I don't know how you can't approach it any differently other than the fact that you can wait for the pipe to fail and you have no choice,
You have no choice at all.
and state of emergency situation as well.
Right.
Which probably would cost a lot more than just seeing what's wrong and then planning for the future.
That's right. At least you have, you'll know the integrity, you know what I mean, of, what we got there. That was a good decision on that, so, till we find out where, you know, what it is.
I know it's a struggling decision at this point, and concerns are well taken all at once, you know, with the upcoming improvements. But Sutton expansion is something that's needed up here, and I think supported by a lot of people. And we are forced to do these I&I studies and get recommendations from Department of Environmental Protection, and their recommendations, that we follow through with them. I don't guess we're just talking at this point, so we already took the vote.
I have no
We're all set.
conflict.
I have a question, if sewer is brought up to Sutton Center, connection fees, are they gonna be charged, or,
That's what it's,
That's what it is.
commissioners step up. You know what I mean? And again, I don't think we're putting the cart before the horse there, and, you know, I just,
no, but that
If you
could,
don't
that
wanna
could
s-
influence decisions on enterprise fund expenditures down the road, too.
that's correct. Well,
That's-
more so when they see if the town hall does connect, it goes into the retained earnings, as it go back on the sewer users' cost. You know what I mean? That's where you're going with that.
But I'm also going at connection fees, like a connection fee's gonna be assessed on a new system, or is it gonna be trying to get people to get on it and use it?
As a-
Well,
as
we
a
did, you're right.
incentive to come in on it?
Yeah,
Well, we gave that 1 year waiver to the people of Manchog.
right, because it was a brand-new system,
That's
so
correct.
this
And we
is.
needed the flow.
Right, I mean, here, you're gonna have flow
And that
from
was
up here
also a
anyway.
mandated system by the federal government.
That's right, yeah,
So
consent order
there
was
was,
issued.
there was more than one issue at hand on Manchog.
What, I mean, those are valid questions, you know what I mean? And at some
I think
point-
there's something we'll put on the table to discuss as we progress with this plan of approach and make a decision on that. And we talk about it as we have the next meeting with onsite as well. When I would like to really get a number of what, the number of
definitely,
connections
yeah.
that are possible
Definitely.
on that system. That would give us a good idea.
Right. I don't think onsite's gonna give you their opinion about assessing municipalities. They're
No,
not gonna
but
give you that.
but they can give us a number of, the number of
Homes that are,
connections that are
could
potential on the
handle those.
system.
Yeah.
he can make a printout of that.
Well, you know,
Just
all I'd like to say is what's going on with the center here. It's not gonna impact my budget that much. I mean, we're talking about minimum bills. We're talking about $5.95. There's no water here, there's no way to assess anything. So, I mean, when you're looking at the expansion here, it's not gonna impact my budget whatsoever, you know? probably impacted in a negative way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to know how much they're actually pumping in.
If you don't
So,
have water,
you know,
you
saying that,
You gotta charge the minimum.
right? And
The thing is, you're gonna have a minimum of one more pump station and a couple more miles of sewer pipes to maintain.
as I told you, it's probably impacted in a negative
Yeah,
way.
that-
You know,
that's-
I'm just saying, you're right. But it's something that will, you know,
Now, is that gonna be handled by the staff you have, or is it gonna require more staff too?
no,
No?
we're fine with that. You know, I mean, we don't need more.
And I like to always think that this phase that we're in is with an ultimate goal of helping out the school system at the time of when that time comes that we need to really look at the school getting the sewer.
It's a good point, Mr. Chairman, because that's the driving force of bringing the sewer to the center.
I mean, they have a substantial operation cost to begin with, to maintain the system they have now. Okay, I'm gonna move forward on to the next, the agenda. Any correspondence, Amanda?
No.
There was a few things on old business that I'm gonna postpone until our next meeting, unless someone has something under old business. Moving on to new business, our next meeting will be April 10th. However, we will have a special meeting for on-site, that will be before that. If the meeting with the selectmen, if the board members want our meeting to be considered that particular meeting, well, I have no objection with that also. If they want that to be considered as one of our monthly meetings.
That's fine, but I still think on-site needs to talk to us first.
Oh,
and then
yes.
shoot to the-
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
With- First meeting's gonna be with on-site, then our scheduled meeting is April 10th.
Right.
But if we have 3 meetings all within the same week, we may not need the next one.
We may want to schedule the same date at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I think we should be there with on-site, when the on-site speaks to the selectmen.
Yes, I think we noted that, when the on-site meets with the Board of Selectmen, or board members will attend
Yeah.
that meeting,
Right. I think it's important.
all right?
I think we should have a meeting with on-site at least a week or two before.
Yeah, that's what
This-
you said.
No,
right?
before,
Yeah.
in case there's more questions before the selectmen's
Yeah.
meeting, we're not waiting till the last minute to.
Right.
Well, that's gonna happen the minute Donald gets the numbers. He's gonna
Right.
call
As I get the
and
numbers, you'll get them the same day.
contact us.
So
and
we could have one next week, even if we,
Because it'd be, yeah. by the
Nobody's
end of the
playing
week, I
golf
get it.
next week, so,
Did you ask him, I was gonna ask him, why don't you print that, all those houses that
He gave me a copy of that by email.
we did, but why don't you get it to us so we can count it?
All right, I'll empty it.
I'd like to know.
Yeah.
okay.
I can do that too.
There you go.
Just take a drive, Carl.
Yeah,
I already did. I come up with 20 different numbers every time we do it.
you keep forgetting. Yeah.
Usually a spreadsheet, if it's
Yeah, it's-
Excel or anything like that, it has a numerical
Yeah,
number on the
number.
left. But
Right.
that doesn't mean what their input
I would
is.
say it's probably 80 or 60, 80 to 90 houses.
Oh,
All right, anything further on, anybody has anything they want to talk about? Could I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
So move.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 3:48.